Good evening, everybody. It's your girl, Ashley Manick. It is a beautiful day. It is a Sunday, and I love Sunday. That's the day that God rested, etc. Anyway, it's your girl, Ashley Manick, aka Jupiter, and this is my second episode of my podcast, On the Line. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, blah, 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 things. I like to do stuff. I am a singer, songwriter, performer, actress, and a big advocate for self-improvement. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the podcast On the Line. What we do, or what I do, is I call somebody and I said, hey, do you want to talk about some stuff? And they're like, yeah, let's talk about some stuff. And I like to have a topic, just so we can reel it back in. It's more of like an open table. Let's kind of talk about things. Let's see where we go, catch a vibe. But then we have the topic so that we can reel back in. So today's special guest is going to be one of the lovely ladies who helped raise me, made me the strong, independent, badass woman that I am today. My Aunt Mom Lisa, aka Titi. So if you hear me call her Titi a few times, it's because that is some sort of language somewhere from my ancestry. DNA, I don't know, I just got my results back and I'm a little bit of everything, so. All right, enough about me. I am going to go ahead and call my wonderful Aunt Mom. We're going to do a FaceTime. Let's see if I can get this done. All right. And here we go. I hope she answers. That would be embarrassing if she didn't answer. Look, it's my face. Hey!
Hey there! What's happening?
What's poppin'? So everybody, this is my lovely Aunt Mom, the one that I was telling you about, one of those lovely, strong, independent, strong like bull ladies that helped raise me and helped me be the independent, badass womanry that I am now. Womanry, that's my new word.
Ooh, I like it.
You like that? Okay, so how are you? How are things? I feel like I haven't seen your face in forever.
So yeah, we've both been busy, I get it, but I'm actually doing super fantastic. It's for you, it's been quite a year for me. I purchased a house, the house I was living in, which I am in love with. I got married, which I swore I would never even do. Yeah, you were there. So
I was.
And I'm just having a great time. Things are working out. My job's going well, and
Awesome.
my household's going well. I'm dieting. I'm losing weight. I'm becoming more fabulous than I already am. What's not
Fabulous. Isn't that such a great feeling, like losing weight and seeing the results and being able to say, I can do this because I am doing it?
Yeah, it's awesome. But the energy. So my problem with diets is I love food too much.
Mm-hmm.
But
Same girl.
I found that the diet for me, you lose weight eating cheese.
Yeah.
What?
That is perfect. That is awesome. I wish that could be my diet, but according to my new results of my ancestry DNA, I am lactose intolerant.
Excuse me, and I did see that. I think it's really weird that most of you is Greek when a huge part of you, like my DNA and, your mom's, and you have chili in there. Italy, I understand. Your great-grandmother was, she had Italian in her, so.
Yeah, but just a little bit. It was only like 6%. I was like 76% European, and part of that 76% was 21% Greek and Balkan. I don't know. I have some researching to do. And then let's talk about the sub-Saharan African. I just want to touch on that for a second. I was expecting maybe like 5%, but I actually was like 10%. And it's amazing because I was talking to my dad's sister, my Aunt Sarah, you know her, and she was saying how that's from his side, from my father. The African side is from them. And here's the shit that really tripped me up was that it said that I was like less than 3% Cuban and Chilean. Like I had ancestry there, but it was only like less than. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, you need to redo this because both grandparents on both sides, maternal and paternal, are from outside of the country. The maternal side is from Cuba, and then the paternal side is from Chile. So it was so weird to me to see the breakdown of that and which DNA that I grabbed from them on both sides.
So what's interesting thing about that, how she got to think about is just because they were born and raised in Chile, that their ancestors didn't come from there. Like, my father has blue eyes. My husband, who's also from Chile, he has brown eyes, which the majority of Chileans do have brown eyes. So the blue eyes, they do come from Europe. A lot of Lebanon, a lot of European, well, I'm not good at maps, but I think Lebanon is in that side of the world. But,
yeah, Lebanon is actually in Asia.
Right, so that's where you would get that, but they migrated over to Chile. And your grandmother on your father's side, Dora, she's Cuban, and a lot of Africans migrated to Cuba. So if you really dig down in it, you're gonna see how amazing it is that, you know, where everything comes from, and how ultimately at the end of the day we're all just.
Yeah, and speaking of that, one of the things that the DNA ancestry showed me was where my, you know, specific DNA came from, and a lot of it was in the Mediterranean. And it says that I originally, like, my ancestry originally started in Africa, which we all know is where we all come from. And after a while of being in Africa, my family moved over to the Mediterranean area, which was ports for other places, which traveled down to, like, the Caribbeans, or traveled down to Spain, or traveled over to which is like Portugal, which is like, which is totally amazing. And then also a fun fact, speaking of all come from one, there is now, they found the evidence that we all connect to one woman in Africa. I mean, there were other women that were around, like, alive around the same time that this woman was, but most of them have passed. Most of them are dead. Their ancestry, their DNA was lost. But now they were able to track every single human being back to one woman in Africa. That's insane.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. But enough about DNA. I want to talk to you. The main reason I wanted to call you is because I not only need advice, but I wanted to touch on the subject of relationships. What are they? What do we expect from them? What kind of relationships are there? How is your relationship? Please help me with my relationship. And just kind of all different types of relationships. That's what I want to be the focal point of this podcast today. Episode 2 with Aunt Mom Lisa, topic relationships.
So I think the first target word that kind of came out at me that you said is, what do we expect? I think that's where a lot of us fail in relationships, because of those expectations.
Right.
And you watch these rom-com movies, that's women, right? Now, some boys are more sensitive to that, but mostly it's women. We watch these rom-coms and we say, oh, this is what love is, and this is what relationship is. And I just think there's so many different levels to love and relationship. As you know, I was in one that for on and off for about 20 years. My, Carly's dad, Carlos, which
and Carly is my cousin's sister.
Confusing. My sister cousin.
My sister cousin. So my sister cousin Carly, she is my Aunt Mom Lisa's daughter, and the reason that we have these complicated terms is because everybody always asks me, like, who's that? Because they always see my Aunt Mom Lisa, they always see her and say, who is that? Blah 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 blah. And rather than explain the whole story of how, when I was a teenager she adopted me and blah blah blah, I just say Aunt Mom. Like, that's my Aunt Mom. She's my biological aunt, but she's also a caretaker, so I just call her Aunt Mom. So Carly is her daughter, so she's cousin sister.
Yeah.
It works out.
So,
it sounds inbred, but who cares?
Yeah, it's not. I want to point that out. It's definitely not.
Definitely not.
So, yeah, when I met Carlos, I was 14 when I met Carlos, and right away I was infatuated with him. And at 14, for me, infatuation is love, right? You don't know
the difference, no.
And we dated from 16 to about 17, and then I moved to Chile, where I dated one guy in Chile. I'll round back to that a little bit. And then I came back and, we dated and then we stopped. And then ultimately we dated for many years and had my beautiful daughter. But it was a very toxic relationship. So my first impression with him was that infatuation when I was 14. Mm-hmm. I can't say that I didn't love him because I totally loved him. Mm-hmm. But what I went through as a partner, it wasn't a partnership. What I had with Carlos, he had some of his issues, and I was the one that wanted to resolve everything. So although it was a give and take relationship, I was the one that gave everything, and he was the one that took everything. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, also, next month, 10 years ago, he passed away, mm-hmm. which was devastating to me mm-hmm. for so many reasons. Because not only did the love of my life, who was the only man that I ever opened myself up to love for, die, but my dreams of us having a functional partnership also died mm-hmm. with him. And it took me years to kind of understand that. But the hurt was there and the hurt was real. So in my stubborn warrior, independent, nobody can ever get one up on me mind, mm-hmm. That's it. I'm prepared to be by myself for the rest of my life and find happiness in that. And I did, and you were a witness of that.
Yeah, and that's very important in relationships. We'll definitely have to touch on that. I think that it's impossible to love somebody for who they are until you've reached a place where you can love yourself for who you are.
That's exactly what that is, mm-hmm. because I didn't for a long time, and mm-hmm. I am guilty. I have been, but I'm changing it, but I have been guilty of putting others that I love or that I care about ahead of myself, always. That was just a natural thing. I don't know when it started. It was from birth. I never knew anything else. I never knew anything different. Mm-hmm. And, after Carlos died, and you go through tragic stuff and you're like, I don't know why this is happening, but I promise it always comes out in the end or at another time why you get put through these lessons. So,
absolutely. And you realize them at the most random times too. Like sometimes I'll be driving to the store, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, my life makes sense now. Now I know why I was in that toxic relationship, because the relationship that I'm in right now is the exact opposite of that. And if we don't go through these terrible relationships, then we'll never really find out what it is that we don't want, especially in shoes like you or shoes like me, where we don't really know what we want. We just know that we want to be loved. And then when you go through that toxic relationship and then you go to your next relationship, as soon as that next relationship starts showing those red flags or start reminding you of things that you've been through in the past or in your toxic relationship, you're like, nope, I'm good. And ultimately you end up finding somebody who fills your cup, who waters you.
Right. Well, you have to be careful with that too. So when we talk about love, rule number one, you have to love yourself. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Because you don't love yourself and you don't feel deserving of somebody to truly love you, that you take toxicity as love.
Yeah, you set your standards. You set your bar pretty low. You just take whatever people give you. There's actually a book on that. I'll have to remember what it's called and share it with you. But in the book, the guy talks about how the way you talk to yourself and treat yourself is the way that you allow others to treat you. And that makes sense, because if somebody were to come up to me and say, hey, you're a piece of shit, I might be like, depending on the day I'm having, I might be like, you know what, you're right. And I might joke about it. I might laugh about it, even though it hurt and it was uncomfortable, because I'm telling myself I'm a piece of shit. But if somebody comes up to me and I already love myself and they say, you're a piece of shit, I'm going to be like, hey, you're a piece of shit. Don't talk to me that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is my face a mirror?
Back up. Yeah.
But yeah, I did a lot of, when I came to Maine, when we moved to Maine, first of all, I know it was a struggle for you when we first got here, but I'm going to say this now. I think it was a miracle blessing in disguise, and we didn't even know it yet, right? Mm-hmm. Because being in this beautiful state I mean, I live on 9 acres. There's nowhere else you could do soul searching. Is when you absolutely have no neighbors and you kind of just look out and all you see is nature, right? So I did a lot of soul searching. What we've been up here about 4.5 years. Tons of soul searching.
Yeah, same.
And we had a little bit of tragedies, in between there. But at the end of the day, I hooked up with over Facebook with an old boyfriend, which was the one that I dated in between Carlos and I moved to Chile, which you already
I already knew that one.
But we had been friends for years on Facebook, but we actually started talking, a lot more. And he started with the, oh, wow, well, we click so good. And I'm like, no. First of all, number one, you don't want me. I'm broken. Number two, you don't want me because I'm an independent woman and I don't need a man. And most men have a problem with that because they want to be needed, right? As women, we call it machismo, that they, they have to do everything. No, they deep down inside, they're insecure too.
Yeah, they need to be needed.
Yeah.
The same way that we need to be needed. We don't want to be in a relationship if we're not needed.
Right. So this wonderful man knocked down all the bricks that I had spent almost 10 years building around my heart. And,
I came like a wrecking ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was. And, he came to visit just to kind of reunite, visit in September. We decided by October that we wanted to be in this roller coaster called life together, and got married in December. So it was really quick, but what I've noticed in this relationship is the love that we have for each other. It's small love, but it builds. It does. Every day through mutual respect and communication. What was that? I never knew what it was like to communicate with a partner.
And that's scary, stepping into a new relationship and not having that experience.
Yeah, it is. And
it takes time.
It's time. It's trial and error when it comes to relationships. But love is a tricky thing.
It is. You have to work at it every single day, and you have to check yourself. One of the most important parts of a relationship is not just communication and comprehension. It's also being able to check yourself. Because when you're in the heat of the moment, if you're in an argument, if you're in any spot where it's, derived from your emotions, you're not always thinking clearly. And you can make some bad choices that can hurt the people around you. Yeah. And when you're in a relationship, you have to constantly check yourself and say, wait a minute, am I blowing up over something that's serious?
That's me. I know I blow up over things that aren't really serious.
No, it's fine. It totally happens.
I tend to bury them because for a long time I didn't like confrontation in the sense of being vulnerable. So for me, being vulnerable was like, being a squirrel running around when an eagle's circling, above her.
Yeah,
that for me, honesty about how I was. I'm always honest. I'm not a liar, but honesty about what I'm truly feeling and communicating that made me vulnerable. And I'm not the vulnerable type. I am or always have been. I'm changing. I'm self-improvement. I think it's a really big thing, and it goes a long way in relationships, which is checking yourself because you keep trying to improve yourself.
Yeah, but, you have to change yourself to be in a relationship. Whether people like it or not, there's certain aspects that you have to change. And as long as they're healthy and as long as they're improving, go for it, change it.
Totally. Happen. But I'm trying very hard not to blow up by things, and it's a struggle. And if I'm very when I try and speak on things or think about how I'm thinking things, I like to describe it. I'm very visual, so I can see in my head. You probably get it from me because my eyes kind of twitch back and forth, are crazy, right? But I can actually see the fight with myself in my head. It's example, and this is just a stupid one and not really an example, but my husband washes the dishes all the time. He tells me, you cook, I'm gonna wash the dishes. And for me, I'm like, no, I'll do everything. He's like, no, we're partners, we share responsibilities. And for me, that is, wait, what did you say, what do you want, which way are you playing? He's like, just playing. So
Just
when
doesn't make
we
sense.
joke around with that,
It just doesn't make sense. You're like, wait a minute, you're a nice
yeah,
person? That's weird.
yeah, I don't understand how that works. But so he leaves the sponge in the sink. I have a little thing that you put the sponge on top of. I'm very OCD about how I like my house. And I've told him a bunch of times, like very subtly, like, hey, don't leave it wet, mold will grow, wring it out and put it, everything has its place. And, I'll see myself sometimes, and every day it's just a habit of his, he leaves it in the sink. And I'm like, is he doing this just to annoy me? He's doing it just, and so I'll start, like, with the devil in my head, is that if that's what you want to call it, saying, oh yeah, let me find a reason to get mad at him or to put my walls back up, because I feel very vulnerable right now.
Yeah.
I think you do for a long time until that security is there. And the other one's like, no, he's just used to doing, it's sponge, really. You think that he's going to, like, start fighting over a sponge. So, and that is the same way that I look at things on a super higher level. But
I do that same thing. I think that's very common in relationships. And I think that's the part of checking yourself that we were talking about before. Like, I know personally, it'll be kind of like the same situation. Like, Travis leaves his fucking cups right next to the sink. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, put it in the sink. Like, why leave it next to the sink? It's on the counter right next to the sink. This doesn't make any sense. So I've talked about it a few times. And when I see dishes next to the sink on the counter, the first thing I want to do is take that glass and smash it against the wall to get everybody's attention. Just be like, can we put the dish in the sink? And then I do that whole, self-talk where I'm like, you know what? Maybe he's just got his own thing. We're still fairly new. There's some habits that we need to learn. We need to learn how to coexist together. But I totally understand that, like having that first initial. Quick question, do you think that first initial wanting to blow up is because of, people like you or people like me holding in those emotions all the time, and then the first thing that goes wrong, we just want to pounce?
I think that could be true. Well, I don't know if it's in a relationship. I think it's in my situation, or how I've always been. I've always blown up on those little things of the people that I feel most secure with. Oh
yeah, I know. I moved out because I left crumbs on the table, remember?
That's a whole nother podcast. let's tell each side and get to the truth. But well, that was another thing. So I blew up, with crumbs, because to me every day I asked, clean up your mess. Not to you, but everybody in general. And no, I came up and cleaned it myself. So anyway, in situations like that, I think we tend to blow up the more secure we get, right? Because in the beginning, it's like, no, we don't, this isn't that big of a deal. How cute, he washed the dishes, but I'll just move the sponge. And then you have the conversation, it goes over and over again. But I think if you're in a relationship where there's lack of communication, and you don't talk about these things, or you don't find a way to lightly step around it, then it could cause a blow up. But I think when somebody blows up, it's their own personal things that they're going through, and it could be a lot of different things outside of the relationship, like school or work, or like self-image issues that we don't even know about, but they bottle up.
Or you could even just be tired that day. I know me, when I'm tired, Travis and Gabby will not talk to me because I am a monster when I'm tired. I instigate fights. I'm cranky. I don't want to do anything. I don't cook. I don't clean. I complain about everything just because I'm tired. My battery's at like 10% and I need to sleep. So everything that's coming out is negative because we put these faces on, right? And we give everybody the best of us. And that's draining. Even in relationships, that's draining. And then I'm sitting here with 10% battery left and I don't have the energy to keep playing nice. So everything just comes out terrible.
So I think that, too, is in self-improvement. And I think that we as individuals, if we can't recognize flaws, because we all have them, right? If we can't recognize our weaknesses and how it affects the relationship in our lives, and not just with our spouse or our significant other or with our kids, with our friends, I mean, there's going to be some point where the other person's just going to be like, you know what? I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in your head.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know that your battery's at 10%. They don't know. So I think
and then they take it personally, and it damages the relationship.
Yeah, because it does anybody. I mean, if you walk in my door and I'm having a bad day and I'm like, what the hell are you looking at? You're like, whoa, wait.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
You know,
Hello.
So even though it has nothing to do with you, if I reflect on you, if I put it on you, whether it has nothing to do with you or not, it's going to affect you. So I think that's where each individual has to continue to self-evolve and self-grow to be able to recognize the signs of, oh, okay, just like your phone, you get a little pop-up when it's 20% battery and then another pop-up when it's 10% battery.
We got to be able to recognize those signs, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard. Nowadays, we're so busy. We're always on the go. I wake up at 4 a.m. I have to exercise because I need to be healthy. You know, I'm getting older. And then I have to shower. And then I have to get ready for work. And then I got to get Gabby up. And then I work for 8 hours, so I can't get any of my personal stuff done. And then I come home and I have to cook. I have to clean. I have to do my homework. I have all of this stuff I have to do. And there's millions of people that are 20 times busier than I am. So how do you find the time to look inwards? How do you take that moment to be able to put everything on pause and start to notice your trends and your patterns? Because it's easier to recognize other people's patterns and other people's behaviors and say, hey, when you get tired, you start getting a little cranky, or hey, when you're in a bad mood, I know it's because something happened at work. Let's talk about it. But when it comes to yourself, it's like 20 times harder to find that time.
Well, one, that's where the communication comes in, right? So, you know, safe word, right? It's supposed to be a dirty thing, but safe word could be a good thing in like relation. When I start getting cranky, you know, Carly will be like, whoa. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I'll have to step back and be like, what's going on? But you do have time. I mean, you don't need a lot of time to reflect on yourself, right? Because in your mind, so it's not like anybody else can see what you're doing. But you get up and you take a walk from, you know, you make sure when you're at work that you hydrate, right? You're healthy, you want to hydrate. You make sure you get up and you get a bottle of water. That's 5 minutes that you walk, and you could reflect on some of the things about yourself or something that happened the other night or things that you want to change.
That's good. So just like little moments, just little baby steps at a time.
Yeah, that's what you do. I love to reflect. Two of the biggest times that I reflect now during the day is one, when I first get up in the morning. I set my intentions, or I don't know, my gratitude. So before my feet touch the ground, I'm already saying, this is what I'm grateful for right here and right now. You know, I'm grateful that the air is so pure where I live. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful for, you know, these 10 people, top 10 people that are in my life. And, you know, so that starts the whole day at a whole new level, right? Because
that's true.
There's toothpaste in the sink, but you know what? I'm so grateful for all these things. Let me just wash it out.
I'm grateful for the running water to be able to clean it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I totally get that. I recently started getting back into my spiritual stuff, and one of the things that I do is right before the full moon, or actually right after the full moon, during the waxing crescent, which is probably another podcast. We can talk about that, but part of the waxing crescent is it's like a gravitational pull on humanity and our consciousness and the way that we think. And during the waxing crescent moon, you want to make sure that you're spending some time just being grateful. And I do that. I sit down and I burn some incense and I do some breathing exercises, and I just say thank you. And I'm just like, I am happy for these things. And that can really change your mood, and it can definitely affect your relationships with other people, because setting the tone for your gratefulness for what you have kind of helps you approach different situations. Like you and somebody could be arguing, and you can be like, I'm so grateful that I just have you here, and all of a sudden the argument's over.
Yeah.
And that works with all relationships.
Exactly, with any kind of relationship. So I think when you say that we have to keep ourselves in check, That's the biggest thing, because at the end of the day, we're all individuals, right? And
Yeah.
our goal is to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So we work hard to be able to make money, to be able to, I don't know, make music, or we work hard, or we go to school to be able to get a job to make more money, to be able to have this, go on vacation. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a vicious cycle, and a lot of people get caught up in that cycle, and the
Mm-hmm.
people who are close to them, especially their husbands or significant others, it's like they're the punching bag.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't look at like you, it's like all the things I'm going through, and all they're there to do is some, I don't know, maybe, they're just there to care and comfort and,
Mm-hmm.
and be there. But as far as it all comes back to you, you have to recognize yourself. You have to recognize the difference between infatuation and passion and what actual love is.
That's a hard one for people to decipher.
It is.
It really is. Because it's emotional. Right. And you get captivated by those emotions.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is that even if you have that infatuation and the passion, which I had with Carlos, like, he could have asked me to walk on spiked fires, posts or whatever.
And he'd be like, anything for you, babe.
I'd be like, do you want me to jump in somersault, too? Like, I mean, and that's how it was, because I was so terrified that, one thing that I did wrong, I would lose him, and I would lose that feeling of love. But, when I dissect it now that it's all, that it's in the past, there was a lot of toxic hurt. And my thought process was, I'll accept the hurt in order to accept the good, too.
Yeah.
And at some point, there is all good and bad, right? Because everybody has their flaws.
Yeah.
You have to love yourself first and recognize, look, this is where I am. This is really what I deserve. I love you, but I can't just be here kicked in the stomach every day by you, or kicked in the heart every day by you, because it's something that I don't deserve.
Yeah.
And you have to think about what that really means too, right? So if that means my husband leaves the sponge in the sink every day, that's a kick in the heart. You have to kind of balance that too. Seriously, I just pick it up and put it away.
You're like, is this really a kick in the heart? Like, and it's so it's not quick. It's so easy for people to spiral and have it go right to, your ego gets in the way, and it goes right to, like, personal. Like, you take it personally. Like, we had this conversation about leaving the sponge just in the sink. Does that mean you don't listen to me? Does that mean what I say is not valid? And you get trapped in that. And you, once in a while, like, you need to check yourself, because then you're in a bad mood, and that's gonna bring your awareness to all the other bad things. Do you know what I mean? Like,
crumbs on the table.
Crumbs on the table. So, speaking of relationships, I know the biggest one is, romantic. Everybody wants to find love. Everybody thinks that they idolize romantic relationships. But I think that in our day and age, one of the more important relationships are friendships, and even professional relationships. I think that we put so much focus on the romantic relationships, and there's not enough focus on just regular human relationships.
So my opinion on that is you really have to define what romance is. So in your mind, if, flowers and candy and diamonds is romance, then, those things are kind of expensive, and you might be held out short that that's not romance. But if you define romance as, well, as you get older, I will assure you, you will define romance as, wait a second, I hate when there's crumbs on the floor, and my partner knows that, and every day when he comes downstairs, he sweeps them up to the floor every day. That is romantic to me, that somebody else has taken the time to observe the things I like and I don't like, and makes a great effort to get it done. That's romantic. Forget the flowers. So I think every individual needs to define what romance is to them. Like when my husband tells me, it's a beautiful day out. Let's get the car and just drive around. And he wants to stop. And, well, he's new to the state. He's also new to the country, so he's passing. But he wants to stop and take selfies with lakes behind them. And that's romantic. Let's go have a picnic. That's romantic. So I think it depends on each individual to define what romance is and stop pulling ideas from rom-coms, because women or men who they make that up. It's not real life. It's what you want in real life, but it's not real life.
But it is nice once in a while. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it is nice to have that kind of romantic bullshit once in a while. But
once in a while, yeah.
But not to have it all the time. You would get bored. You'd get bored after a while of doing the same thing over and over again.
But I mean, that comes down to communication too. Like, when you need to be straight up with, hey, I find it very sexy, XYZ, or I find it very romantic, XYZ. And everybody's definition of romance and passion is different. And intimacy is different. It doesn't have to be all about, one thing or another. Everything's different. So to know yourself, and again, it all goes back to self-awareness, self-improvement. What can we not really care about? What do we care about more? It's always a growing process. So, yeah, for romance, define what you want in romance, and define what romance is to you, and it's going to be different in different stages of your life, right? So, be open and honest with your partner and say, hey, you know what? I feel that every once in a while I need this, because this equals romance to me. And hope that it comes back at you.
Yeah. And like you said, it's all about being honest. It's like a scary, vulnerable place for some people. I know me specifically.
Me as well.
Yeah, it's all about just being honest and communicating. And, especially when you're first dating somebody, one of the reasons that Trav and I ended up getting together was because we had such a good friendship. We didn't start off romantic at all. We definitely were just friends first. And I wasn't afraid to lose him. Do you know what I mean? I was so comfortable in myself and who I was. I wasn't afraid to lose him, because I knew at the end of the day, if he wasn't here to have my back, I was here to have my back. So I had lost all of the fear. And that made that specifically because I knew myself. I knew what I wanted. I was able to find myself after my crazy toxic breakup. And that alone, just knowing myself, gave me the courage to be honest with him, gave me the courage to say, you know what, if I'm honest and he doesn't like it, then bye. Like, I don't have the type of energy to be accepting things that are not benefiting me anymore. I think that comes with older age. I'm almost 30, so.
I know. I'm only 24, so I'm like where you're at, plus years of experience, but it's not accepting. It's that hits a really strong point, because again, if you're in yourself and you're independent and look, it would suck that we weren't together, because he brings a lot of happiness and joy and great stuff to my life. But I still know that I'll be okay. Yeah,
you'll move on, and not like move on where you'll be totally forgetful of the relationship and everything that you guys had, but not like you wouldn't dwell on it. You wouldn't let it define you. You wouldn't let it control you.
Exactly. It doesn't define you, because when you're working, being strong as an individual, it stings. A breakup always stings.
Yeah.
Sometimes stings one person more than the other, right? It's never quite even when two people break up, but as long as you keep in mind and that, I was okay before, and I will be okay after, and even during, so a lot of relationships seem to fall into this pattern of, well, I know that when my part of the relationship means so much to you, you'll be lost without it. No, never look at a relationship like that.
No, absolutely not.
And same with the partner. And if the partner's saying, hey, well, what would you do if I was here before you, sweetheart, and I will be here after you? I enjoy your company. is why you're still here, and which is why we're still together. So,
And the other person has to be at like a certain mental level to be to be able to understand that. You can't date somebody that's gonna like let that hurt them. Do you know what I mean? Like it may sting, if it's not something that you've heard before, but you need to be dating somebody that's at a certain level that can understand where you're coming from. I don't think people should start dating until they're like 40.
You know what? I agree with you because I'm 44. I mean, 24 plus 20 experience, but I've never been happier in a relationship than I am with my husband. And it's crazy for me because I'm always, I'm the doer. I'm the always for everybody. You tell me, and you've witnessed and received this too. You tell me, oh, I need this, and I'm wriggling around to make sure I pick up every piece to be able to, to provide that. And no, he's just like, I don't need anything. What do you need? I'm like, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah, I'm doing that now too. I mean,
Are you talking to me? I don't understand what the words that are coming out your mouth. Because nobody's ever sat back and asked me, what is it that you need?
And I totally understand that. I'm not 40, but I am dating, which I can say being somebody who's transitioning out of their 20s into their 30s is definitely an interesting thing because not only am I finding myself and learning how to verbalize my own needs and wants and set boundaries, but I'm also in a relationship that requires the same exact thing, but in a different, more vulnerable light. So trying to balance all of that. There's days where I am, and this sucks because he's probably going to listen to this, but there's days we'll just be sitting on the couch and then I'll be like, is this what I want? Am I happy? What's going on? Why am I so miserable today? Is this going to work? Are we going to have a good relationship? And then there's other days where I'm just like, I can't imagine not ever being without this. Like I had a sex dream with somebody else like 2 nights ago. And then in my dream, I realized I was dreaming and then got mad that I was having the dream and waited to wake up. I was like, I'm pissed.
That's a sign of mature love.